So way back in Genesis chapter 14, I think the first reading was from Genesis 14. We hear about this priest and king, the king and priest, Melchizedek. Salem, he's a king of Salem. So word that comes from shalom, which means peace. So he's the king of peace. But he's also a priest. He's a priest of God who offers bread and wine. And that's very strange because usually if you're going to offer something to God, it's the lifeblood of an animal. That's the normal kind of sacrifice. The expected sacrifice would be the lifeblood of an animal because God is a God of living. You usually offer life to God. And the belief was that life is in the blood of the animals, so they offer life. So it's very strange that this king would appear to Abraham after the defeat of the other kings. So Abraham has just finished some kind of war, and he has triumphed and conquered several kings. So he has a lot of treasure or a lot of booty, as it is referred to, all these extra things and these possessions of the enemy that he has acquired. And what this king of peace does, who's a priest of God, he brings forth bread and wine, he offers it to God, and he blesses Abraham. He blesses him. And Abraham, realizing what a great blessing that is, he gives something back. And so he gives this king or priest of Melchizedek a tenth of everything he has. And so if you're wondering where this understanding of tithing comes from, it goes all the way back to Genesis. Way back here is where the origin of the tenth of the tithing or sacrificial giving comes from. So that tithing or sacrificial giving of 10% of our gross income, that requires a lot of faith in God. That God is going to take care of me when I start to give this much back to him. But the thing about this blessing for Abraham is that he realizes that what he has received is much greater than any worldly wealth. And so then there's a gift that Abraham realizes he's received. It's a great gift, and it's worth much more than any worldly wealth. In our second reading, so we're getting set up for the gospel, of course, it all points to the Eucharist. I'm sure you figured that much out already. And the second reading from 1 Corinthians 11, St. Paul talks about this great gift we receive from Jesus. Jesus is the fulfillment of Melchizedek, whoever he was. There's always argumentation over who Melchizedek really was. And so then this great gift from Jesus, what's the great gift from Jesus? It's the new covenant in his blood. All right? The fact that we are cleansed of our sins and saved by this new covenant in his blood is also a new kind of relationship that exists between God and his people. So Jesus is the fulfillment of this priest Melchizedek. And so there's a new union available to us as well through the Eucharist. God joins us to himself in this new kind of relationship, and part of realizing this gift of the Eucharist and the many gifts and blessings we've received from God helps us to live from God and his love. When we realize the blessing or the gift that we have, especially in the Eucharist, we can realize how much we're loved. That some God of the universe, who we pretty much are so small, almost account for nothing, but he looks at us as if we are everything. And he loves us and gives us so many different blessings and gifts. In particular, he gives us this great gift, the Eucharist. And so then, in realizing this, we realize that, wow, we're really loved because somebody wants to give me all kinds of divine life. So if we're given a great gift, we realize how great that gift is, then we respond with a generous heart. Okay, when I realize how many gifts God has given me, I respond with my life. I offered him my life. And so it became, as part of my path in discerning the priesthood. All right, to realize how much God has given me, to realize how little I've given him, and to realize that he still gives me more than I deserve. To realize how affirmed I am by God, and then to be able to give back in whatever way I can, and dedicate my life for that. Now, in Luke's Gospel, which we hear about the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus, he teaches about the kingdom of God, and he heals those who needed to be cured, and he feeds 5,000 people in the wilderness. So the wilderness, of course, is a place where there's not a lot of abundance, there's not a lot of anything. It's scarce. Food and water is scarce. So this is an amazing feeding because not only is there 5,000 men, you don't count women and children, there's women and children there too. So it's more than 5,000 people that Jesus fed after he taught them. And then, reminder, these people are used to having like a subsistence level of food on a daily basis. That means there's barely enough food to survive on a regular basis. This is probably the biggest meal that they ever had in the whole year. Okay? And so this is this amazing feeding of 5,000 men, not counting women and children, and they all ate, and they were satisfied. Okay, so that is a very big point about the fact that in light of the fact that most people here live on a subsistence level, they barely have enough food to eat every day. And here they all ate, and they're all satisfied, and oh, by the way, there's fragments left over. They couldn't even eat it all. 5,000 men plus women and children couldn't eat what Jesus provided from 5 loaves and 2 fish. Someone might look at the gospel and go, there's a typo here. Must have been a food truck or somebody dropped a cargo load of food over the area. That's what's supposed to be so striking about it. The impossibility of this. It's not supposed to be practical. It's because Jesus Christ is the one who satisfies. It's a miracle that points to Jesus Christ. And so after uplifting teaching and sufficient physical nourishment, people are satisfied, they all ate, and there's 12 wicker baskets left over. He provides more than what we could ever need or imagine. Everything you want, God can give you that times a billion. But he's only going to give you what's good for you for your eternal salvation. But he does work on our temporal salvation as well. So we offer very little to Jesus. We give him a meager 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he turns them around into more than we could ever supply. There's more than we could ever need, an overabundance. This is God's great blessing upon us in the Eucharist. So what's the Eucharist? It's an overabundance of everything we could ever possibly need for our happiness and eternal life. Why is that? Okay, the simple theme of this gospel is that only Jesus Christ satisfies in the Eucharist. How great a gift, not the blessing of Abraham from Melchizedek, how great a gift is the Eucharist. How great of a gift is the Eucharist. So we have, everyone heard of Eucharistic miracles? Eucharistic miracles? Several of you? Good? Good? Okay. Eucharistic miracles. It's actually a traveling Eucharistic miracle display. Not that they have the actual miracle there, but they have these little poster boards, and they tell about these descriptions of Eucharistic miracles. My favorite is the Eucharistic miracle of Lanciano, Italy, and it was in the year 700. So everybody likes a good miracle story, right? So I'm going to give you a little miracle story here, okay? So about the Eucharist. Okay, to help us recall the importance of the Eucharist. So in the year 700, a priest in the order of St. Basil had doubts about the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. It's a pretty good doubt because it's probably a lot of Catholics, a lot of people who don't understand. They have doubts about, is Jesus really present in the Eucharist? In my growing up as Catholic, I had doubts. Are you really, I'd look at the bread and go, are you really there? Are you really there? Jesus? And of course, that was the initial question or statement that gets me in touch with Jesus and on my path. I said, if you're really there, help me understand. And then, of course, that's a whole other story. But I'm going to stick to this priest with the order of St. Basil in 700. This is a really good story. So he prayed that his doubts would be removed, and God answered with a miracle. So in the tiny church of St. Ladoncian in Lanciano, Italy, the priest finished the words of consecration over the wine during the Mass. And at that moment, the Eucharistic bread changed into living flesh, and the Eucharistic wine changed into living blood, and in which the blood had begun to dry into 5 irregular globules of differing shape and size. Now, there were several investigations of this miracle in 1574, 874 years later, if you do the math. But in 1970, the Vatican chose to thoroughly and scientifically investigate this miracle with top scientists in spectroscopic analysis, high-powered microscopes, and advanced medical technology. The analyses were conducted with absolute and unquestionable scientific precision and documented with microscopic photographs. So all the scientists concluded that without reservation, the host flesh is a slice of tissue from a human heart, as though it had been expertly sliced by a surgeon's scalpel through the center of the heart. And though subject to decay, as all flesh is, this flesh, for 1,319 years to date, remains incorrupt. There's more. The photos showed all the essentials of a complete human heart. The host flesh was muscular heart tissue, having an identifiable section of the myocardium, the endocardium, the vagus nerve, and the left ventricle. The flesh and blood also have the same blood type as that found on the Shroud of Turin, blood type AB. What's the Shroud of Turin? The Shroud of Turin is the burial cloth of Jesus, or the suspected burial cloth of Jesus Christ. Moreover, the flesh and blood tested indicated proportional percentage protein distributions. What's that mean? Why is that significant? It indicates that it was fresh flesh, that is, taken from a live person, in the same person and the same heart. So after 1,319 years, we still have this flesh and blood, and even though exposed to atmospheric and biological agents, the flesh and blood still exhibit characteristics of fresh blood and a living heart. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, so if you have a science background, you have a medical background, I'm sure you'll find this fascinating. It's fascinating for anybody. So science has proven that a miracle of God occurred, showing that the Eucharist is the real flesh and blood of a human heart from a living person with the same blood type as that of found in the Shroud of Turin. Now, you can do the math, all right? Put 2 and 2 together, you get 4. So you put the Shroud of Turin together with the evidence here, and you can pretty much say that science has proven that the Eucharist is Jesus Christ's heart, the living heart of his. The living heart of his. So Catholics have always believed that the Eucharist is the living heart of Jesus, and now science has something to offer those who might struggle with that belief in the real presence, or people who are not sure what to believe about Catholics who eat this holy bread and drink this sacred wine, so to speak. Jesus, he gives us his heart in the Eucharist. It's his living, beating, breathing heart. That's the teaching of the Church. To realize that great gift is beyond what we can imagine. That a God of the universe has devised a way for him to feed us with his own divine life on a regular basis. He gives his heart to us in the Eucharist, where he loves us with an incredible love. And that is a great and amazing gift that deserves return. So only the Eucharist satisfies the deepest desire of the human heart. What is the deepest desire of any human heart? It's to love and be loved. This is what our hearts desire. It's what God created them for. Our hearts, our souls, we want to be loved. We want to be able to love others. And so nothing in the world will ever compare to the gift that we have in the Eucharist. There is no satisfaction away from the Eucharist. There's nothing in the world that is going to be able to satisfy us other than the Eucharist. What people long for is love. And it is, in the Eucharist, a living, breathing heart of the Son of God. That is who Jesus in the Eucharist, that's who the Eucharist is. Jesus Christ, living, beating heart. And we receive that in a physical way, but it nourishes us in a very spiritual, in a very real way, and it unionizes us, or makes us one with God. This is the great gift that we have in the Holy Eucharist. It's the great gift that we celebrate on the solemnity of the most holy body and blood of Jesus Christ.